You get to decide if the way that you're living and the way that you're speaking to yourself is working for you. It may have gotten you up until a point, but all I care about is, are you happy?
Too often we can take ourselves too seriously. Separating that from sincerity. We can be sincere in our work. We can be sincere in everything we do, but dialing down the seriousness makes space for the magic and the play. We have to make space for the magic and the play.
And choose to see not the gray hair, not the wrinkles, something that is widely powerful and accepted amongst generally all these change makers in the industry.
Do I wish none of it happened? No, I don't actually wish that, because I really like how I turned out.
Hey everyone. Welcome back to the Happy and Human podcast. I'm your co-host, Dr. Seema Desai, and I am here with two amazing humans, one of which is my amazing co-host, Dinesh. How are you?
Hey everyone. Hey Seema. I am doing great. How are you today?
I am excellent. It's a little bit different. We're here on a Friday instead of our usual Saturday morning.
Yeah, we're here on a Friday, and that's because we've got someone really special with us. She's so special that I actually have a list here, and I'm going to start with a small introduction, then turn it over. You'll introduce her a little bit more.
Yeah.
She's a reverend. She's got a culinary degree. She's a amazingly published author. She's got a podcaster. She's a voiceover actor, MC, and she's a lifestyle show host on TV, right?
I was back I did that for about 10 years on and off. And I was also a co-host here in Austin, Texas on our morning show. Yeah. In 2018.
Amazing.
Mystery voice.
There's this voice just booming in from the heavens.
So beautiful, this voice. So much so that she's dedicated her life to amplifying the most important voices of this day and age. The ones that speak for change, community, for love, growth, meaning, and for making this world a better place. She's been featured on the Wall Street Journal, VH1, Mind Valley, which is one of my personal favorites, the CW, and NBC. Welcome to Happy and Human, Vasavi Kumar. Woo-hoo!
Thank you so much, Seema and Dinesh, for having me. It's so good to be here. I love spending time with you guys already. I mean, we had such a good pre-recorded conversation, so I can't wait to actually get into the actual conversation today.
Yeah. So many of our listeners have heard the podcast episode start off saying that we had an amazing pre-show, but we actually recorded the pre-show, so we may release some snippets and tidbits from it.
Please do.
Yeah.
It's always gold.
So let's jump right into it, right? In your book, which is Say It Out Loud, and it's fantastic from what I've seen and the portions I've read. The dedication, the very first page, is to all those who suffer in silence. May this book bring relief. And like Seema said, you've dedicated your life to amplifying the most important voices of this day and age. Tell us about that statement, and tell us all the intention behind it and where that came from.
Well, what I want you to know is when I first wrote the dedication, before it is what it is now, to all those who suffer in silence, I had actually, at first, when I first started writing the book, dedicated my book to my father's younger brother, Lakshmi Kumar, who hung himself from a fan 31 years ago. And I originally dedicated my book to my uncle. But because of him and his, taking of his own life that at a young age, and I learned that at a young age, at around 12 years old. It happened when I was 10, but I found out when I was 12 exactly how it happened. Everything that I do, it's like he's always there with me. And I always just, even now as I talk about it, for me, I don't think that needs to ever happen in any human life, that they feel like it's so bad that I have to leave. It's so bad that I have to take my own life. So my dedication originally was to my uncle. And then as I was finishing up the book, it was a 1.5 to 2-year process. I looked at the dedication and I said to myself, this is bigger than my uncle. It may have started because of my uncle. I may be on this journey of wanting to help those who suffer in silence because of my uncle, but this is bigger than my uncle. This book is not about me and my uncle. And I put him in the acknowledgement section of my book instead. But then I realized, what was it about him that made him take his own life? And that's, he was suffering in silence. And, in India, there's no real, people don't really pay attention to those who are suffering in silence. It's like, just go eat something, go pray, go do something to figure it out, And my poor uncle, he would still be alive today had he only known how to use his voice, or maybe if people had taken his symptoms a little bit more seriously. So, that's why I changed it to all those who suffer in silence, because I know that it goes way beyond my uncle who was suffering in my silence, who was suffering in silence. Yeah.
Such a powerful story. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Amazing. Your book is really the instruction manual for finding who you are and releasing that into the world.
It's an excellent guide and instructional to help you transform the way you talk to yourself. And when you learn how to talk to yourself, you will really discover, uncover, and realign back with who you really are before somebody told you who you were. Mm-hmm. And that's really the point of the book. And ultimately, yes, to find out who you are. And you do that by understanding and learning and paying attention to how you're talking to yourself. And so it's really an opportunity for you to master your inner dialogue. Mm-hmm. Master your inner dialogue, transform the way you speak to yourself. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Vasavi, you shared a really powerful story about your uncle, mm-hmm. and the importance of, I couldn't agree more. I think we experience life as a result of how we talk to ourselves more so than anything else. Mm-hmm. I'm curious though, can you share with our listeners, you've had your own stories, your mm-hmm. own sort of coming to be, even in a place to write this book about suffering in silence. Would you mind sharing?
Yeah, I think the story that I want to start with is when I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder when I was 19 years old, and really being forced to, in a way, have to understand my mind. I look at everything as a blessing in my life, and bipolar disorder is not something that just goes away. It is a very real psychiatric illness, and it is an imbalance of chemicals in the brain. And, I think our society really just doesn't understand it a lot. And so I, as someone who was diagnosed with that, set out to understand the nature of my mind and understand why I have these highs, these extreme highs and extreme lows. I'm very much, how do I say? I don't want to say in recovery, but I am in recovery, but also I've gotten a handle of my mind, which is why I think I was able to even write the book. You're not really able to write something if your mind's not clear. And so that's how it all started, right? I was forced to have to understand my mind. So me having a mental illness diagnosis, and I say that in quotes because I actually consider myself to be mentally very healthy. Mm-hmm. It's funny how that works, especially the most mentally healthy in my family. But I was forced to have to understand my mind at a very young age, 21 years ago. And so from that, one of the things that I had to learn was how to talk to myself and how to be kinder to myself and how to love myself, which no one teaches us how to love ourselves, how to respect ourselves. We're actually taught in a very odd way, the complete opposite. Because we're taught how to please everyone else. We're taught how to not rock the boat. We're taught to do things in a certain way that's going to keep the peace. And ultimately what we end up doing is rejecting and abandoning ourselves. So my diagnosis with bipolar disorder, coupled with my sobriety journey, recovery journey, I'm going to be 5 years sober from cocaine in March. That was a very hard lessons for me that I had to go through, and ultimately I had to learn multiple times. I'm a thorough learner, but I'm happy to say by the grace of God, I'm great. I'm great now. I'm good now. I feel really solid in who I am. And I think what I want everyone hearing is that whatever you have, whatever the cards that you've been dealt, whether you have a diagnosis or you've gone through a divorce, like I have 10 years ago, I got divorced, whether you are, struggling with an addiction right now, that you can get through it. And you can get through it when you learn how to love yourself, and more specifically, when you learn how to speak to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I just want to honor you for sharing that and for everything that you've done for yourself and how you are now set out to be a role model and example for so many people. So thank you for sharing that.
When I hear role model, I'm still very human. We're on the happy and human pod. It's still a little weird for me when people look up to me and people see that I'm a role model, and I'm like, if you only know, I still struggle. Just yesterday I was dealing with massive imposter syndrome about something, and so I just share it, and that actually takes any pressure off myself. I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm trying to do the best that I can by me, and share that and share the learnings and share what I go through. But I appreciate you saying that. And I receive that. This has been the year for me that especially since the book has come out, and man, people are like, oh, I'm loving your book and you're teaching me so much. And I'm like, okay, God, I think you've given me this path for a reason. You want me to be this person, this type of person for people. And so it's really stepping into that and embodying the person that I know I can be and that I am, so I can help other people. And I believe everyone has the power to do that. It's not, I'm no special than anybody else. I just keep going, keep going. Yeah.
So good. I want to go back to what Seema asked earlier about that inner voice, right? And in your book, you talk about your inner dialogue can also be your biggest hater.
Yeah.
Why is that so common for so many of us, in that our inner dialogue tends to have a critical bent, right? That we tend to, and to use your words, drowning yourself in criticism and cruelty.
Yeah.
Why is that bent so prevalent for so many of us?
I feel like it's a familiarity that I think we're all a little used to. It's a painful familiarity, I want people listening to this that it's not like, I think the question that we ask ourselves is like, well, why am I so mean to myself? And why am I like this? And I think the easiest way to just kind of nip that in the bud is because you're used to it. Yeah. You're used to treating yourself like shit. You're used to being critical. I have college girls tell me this all the time when I go speak in universities. Oh, I'm my harshest critic. And they say it like they're wearing it with a badge of honor. And I'm like, that's cool. I'm sure it helps you get places in life being harsh. But what is the point of going after all these dreams and goals if you're going to treat yourself like crap along the way? I don't want that for you. I don't want that for me. But to answer the original question, it's because we're used to it. It's how maybe we've been spoken to in the past. And it's also culturally acceptable to be that way, right?
Yeah.
Self-love is actually very uncomfortable for a lot of people to watch somebody love themselves so much. We're not taught how to do that. I said that originally, right? Mm-hmm. So I would say it's a painful familiarity. We're used to it.
I recently heard this and it hit me like a ton of bricks. Someone said that their biggest desire was to see themselves the way others see them, right? And that really resonated with me. And, I've been doing a lot of coaching, a lot of work with a lot of different people like Robin Sharma, Tony Robbins, Brooke Castillo. And I realized that I also feel that. And so many people around me, their biggest need in life is to simply see themselves in all the glory and the greatness that other people see them in. Can you offer any practical strategy tips on how we can move from that criticism to becoming more familiar with self-love and self-acceptance?
Yeah, I think the most underrated way for us to really start to see ourselves, and this may sound a little cheeky, is to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and really love your reflection. Mm-hmm. I think it's really important that we can look at ourselves and feel amazing, and start to literally see yourself the way other people see you. And it might take some time, but the best way for you to gauge your relationship with yourself is by looking in the mirror. My father taught me that. My father, I write about this in the book. When I was younger, I would sit and watch my dad get ready for work, and he would comb his hair and he'd wear his suit and he would talk to himself in the mirror, and he'd just say like, aren't I so handsome? Or if you would have a corporate client, my dad was a CPA, and he always had one-on-one clients, small businesses, but then he moved into corporations, bigger like banks and stuff. And I remember one day he had a big meeting with ICICI Bank, which is in India. Yeah. And my dad was like, I'm going to get this deal. They're going to want to work with me. I know they are. They're already my client. My dad would talk as if it already happened. And just the way he would look at himself with such pride, and he was very kind to himself. There were lots of things that I wish my dad did differently. He was a little bit of a people pleaser. He had a hard time saying no to people. But if there's one thing that my father taught me, and he's like, you can always tell how you feel about yourself by what your experience is of you looking in the mirror. So, next time you're in front of the mirror, brushing your teeth, combing your hair, putting on your makeup, whatever, getting dressed, like really see yourself. Like to actually see yourself, I need you to see yourself. And you can do that by standing in front of the mirror. I mean, think about how many opportunities we have a day to just stare, to just at least acknowledge our reflection, right? So I look at window reflections, I look at mirrors, and I do that because for so long, y'all, when I was in my addiction, I would always keep the bathroom lights off. I never wanted to see myself in the mirror because I hated myself. I thought I was disgusting because I was in such a deep addiction with cocaine and I was living such a double life. I could not even stand looking at myself. No matter how pretty I dolled myself up or how much money I had made, I always avoided looking in the mirror. So now I look at myself all the time, and it definitely shows me how far I've come. So I recommend that to everybody. It's like, really look at yourself in the mirror and pay attention to what you're saying to yourself, because that'll tell you where you're at.
Mm-hmm. So good. It's not this is something that every change maker in our industry, if you will, every high performance coach, every meditation, like yoga, all of these things, all of these people say something along those lines of, look at yourself in the mirror, look at yourself in the eyes, and choose to see not the gray hair, not the wrinkles, not the, maybe the crooked teeth or whatever it is that you don't like about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So just to kind of tell listeners, this is something that is widely powerful and accepted amongst generally all these change makers in the industry. But Vasavi, I have a question. What was that like for you? Like, what was that tipping point for you to not be able to go from, I can't even stand the idea of looking at myself in the mirror, to, I'm going to try to do this today. I'm going to meet my eyes in the mirror. What was that like? What was that about?
So the second time I went to rehab, I was, how old was I at the time? That was 2019. So I was 37 years old. That was just 4.5 years ago, almost 5 years ago, actually. And I was standing in the kitchen arguing with my mother. She wanted me to take a drug test. And I was like, how dare you ask me to take a drug test, even though she knew damn well what was going on. And I just decided in that moment, I'm 37. I'm arguing with my mother about something that I damn well did. Like I'm lying to her, and I was done with the chaos. It was the day that I decided to be done with the chaos in my own life. And that doesn't mean the chaos just stopped forever. Trust me, I still have chaotic moments, not as much at all. But in those first 3 years of my recovery, it was pretty awful. Like people don't understand. You don't just get sober and life gets better. No, because when you remove the drug, whatever that drug is, the toxic relationship, the substance, the habit, the behavior, that's the blatant issue. Once you remove that, then all the latent issues come up, right? So I have to deal with now all my latent issues. I don't have drugs to deal with it. I don't have a relationship to keep me occupied. I wasn't even working. My mother was paying all my bills for 6 months. She paid every single one of my bills because she said, I don't want you to get back into work and start doing work, and then you're not going to focus on yourself. Let me just pay your bills for 6 months. So I said yes. And it was in that 3-year period where I learned, when I got out of rehab again, the second time, this was in 2019, that was the second time I went back within a less than a year period. I actually Googled, how do you love yourself? Because I felt like I clearly didn't know what the hell I was doing. Like, it was just a wake up call for me. I don't know what I'm doing, because clearly I'm back here again. So it took a lot of humbling of myself to realize that I didn't know what I was doing, or whatever I was doing wasn't working. Let's just say that it wasn't working. I still needed some tweaks in my life and in my behavior. So that's really when that switch happened, when I went back to rehab the second time. And my mom and dad are very supportive of me. I think it's been very hard for them, but I mean, they see me now, and it's all gotten great for the family. The family's doing great. It's when you have one person in the family that's not doing well, it affects everybody. It's because you're a system, and I'm just a unit in that wheel. Now everything is great, but it definitely caused a lot of suffering for my family and for me, but they're very understanding, and they never have made me feel worse than I already feel. Yeah, that it makes me emotional, because I know that not everyone has that kind of support system, but it's not like an overnight thing. I want to say that to everyone. It's a moment to moment choice. Every day, every moment, every thought that I think, every word that I speak to myself, every action that I take is a moment to moment choice. And sometimes I've made some really dumb choices. Sometimes I've said some really mean things to myself. but you always get to choose to be kinder to yourself in that moment. You can always clean it up with yourself. You can, someone else may not forgive you for stuff that you said, but you can forgive you. You can forgive you, and you can do better, and you can make amends with yourself, and you can make amends with other people. Whether or not they forgive you is really not the goal. The goal is for you to get your side of the street clean, you know? So I hope that answers your question. It wasn't just like, yes, there was a pivotal moment, but after that, it was a moment to moment to moment to moment choice. It's a one day at a time, actually 1 minute at a time, 1 hour at a time. That's how we start. Then it's one day at a time. And now it's become integrated in a part of my life. So it's become automatic for me to be kind to myself. It's automatic for me. It's no longer, I don't question being kind to myself. Like, do I or do I? Like, no, it is the way we speak to ourselves sets the tone and standard for how everyone else treats us. But it starts with us. Yeah.
So good. I bet now that all the wonderful things you're doing in this world, your mom says a few less times, Vasavi Kumaire. Is that, did I pronounce that correctly?
No, it's Chumaire. Chumaire means stop talking. She won't say Chumaire, but she still definitely always wants to be the boss of me. My mother, she won't admit this. She wants to be the boss of me forever. Anytime I tell her like, oh, I'm going to go speak at this event or I'm going to go be on this podcast, she'll be like, okay, this is what you need to talk about. Like she still always wants to, which is fine. I'm glad we're talking about that and not going to rehab, you know? So the quality of our conversations have really elevated. So
Vasavi, right there, you just illustrated something. This is the mark of someone who shows up for themselves and speaks with kindness is just that shift. And listeners, I don't know if you caught it, but you said, my mom's, she wants to tell me, she wants to give her opinion. And I'm really, really glad that we're not talking about going to rehab. Like, wow. It seems so, just it's like a secret, like a toxin that we allow our minds and souls and bodies to just sort of absorb. Like, this is how it is for me. My parents, this, my job, that, and I mean, you've worked very closely with Lisa Nichols. She talks a lot about gratitude. And I just saw you do it so easily and so masterfully.
Thank you. I just noticed when it's developing that self-awareness, right? I can tell when the conversation, even the one that we were having, like, I don't want it to go to a place where it's like talking about my mom, because I'm not there anymore. Listen, if you've heard any of my previous podcast episodes, maybe in the 2 years ago, I have said some things about my mother on my own podcast that I'm not proud of. But that felt very true for me. They felt very true for me at the time. And I'm very happy to say that I've graduated graduated from that. When I speak about my mother, I still say stuff like she wants to be the boss of me because it's funny and it's partially true, but I'm just a lot more grateful for her now. And so I don't even like to say anything about her that just doesn't feel good anymore. I've been able to see beyond some of the things that she's done, and I see her for what she has brought to the table. Even beyond giving me life, she's gone above and beyond. So.
Yeah, and a lot that comes up a lot for men and boys especially. They start to see their father as human, right? And once you can start to appreciate their humanness and not some mythical figure in your life, you can move past the blame and get to compassion. Before we move on, what's your mom's name? Let's give her a shout out.
Geeta.
Hi, Geetanti. I hope you're doing well.
And my dad's name is Shanti.
Hi,
Geeta
Shanti
and
Uncle.
Shanti Uncle. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, how perfect are those two names, right?
Well, this is my dad. This is him in his office.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
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 I love that. By the way, if I turn my chair this way, you can see my parents right back there as well. I keep them right in my office.
So sweet.
Yeah.
Right back there.
I love it.
See, yeah. And I have our whole family photos everywhere. Yeah. I have family photos in the office. Yeah.
Can you speak to that, Vasavi? I think, you talked about the practice of looking at yourself in the mirror and really loving yourself. I am enough, all of those wonderful things. There's also another practice of like looking at a younger version of yourself and loving that, unconditionally. right?
Yeah.
Who is that cutie? Who is that cutie? How
He's
old were you
so
there?
cute.
Oh, I'm only about I think less than 2 years old here. I might be 2 years old. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
cute.
I always keep that photo of me as a younger child. But go ahead, Seema. Yeah, you were saying about our
so
younger.
my question, we all have these pictures. I actually don't have a picture of my younger self, but we all three have these pictures that of people that really, really mean something to us. And I know that's a really common practice, but there's a lot of intentionality behind you picking the picture that you picked of your father. Tell us what these little things that don't take any time, right? Like you just put a picture there. Talk to us about the power that has.
I just believe that we have the power to create our reality, and it starts with our environment. Like I have the photo of my dad. I have a little Ganesha with a diya, and it just you have that too. Yeah. I mean, I just believe in being intentional, and we come from, that's beautiful. Yeah. We come from such a beautiful culture where everything has meaning. Everything we do has meaning. There's nothing that we do that does not have meaning. Everything is intentional. So I was raised Hindu. We're Hindu Brahmins. And so we did a lot of pujas, a lot of everything growing up. And like everything that we did always had like meaning behind it. And my parents instilled that. They didn't want us to be ABCDs, American born, confused Daisies. So they just instilled that in us. And for me, like, if something is going to be in my space, if someone is going to be in my space, it's going to be very intentional. Now, when I was not as self-aware, I just let everybody in. I let anything into my space, into my body, into my, whether that was food, whether that was substances, whether that was relationships. And so once I had to wake up, like really wake up, like I'm not a spring chicken at 37. I'm 41 now, but at 37, I'm not 24 anymore, right? We don't have that kind of time, like we did. So I woke up at 37, really, and I just said, I'm going to make sure that everything in my space is a representation of what I value. And so I value my father. I value God. I value, myself as an inner child, my inner child. That's why I have a little photo of myself. And I think it just speaks to the fact that we are powerful creators.
Yeah.
And it starts with everything that you keep in your space, in your car, in your wallet, everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. You said Geeta Auntie and Shanti Uncle didn't want you to be ABCDs, right?
Yeah.
And they wanted you to hang on to your culture. For so many Desi kids, including myself, we wanted to Westernize our name. We wanted to, I would go by Daniel, right? Or someone would change their name to make it easier for others to pronounce. And for a long time, I thought that was fairly innocuous. It was just greasing the wheel, reducing the friction in communication, until my coach called me out and she said, probably the most powerful thing I've heard in my 40s for me, that if it's so easy for you to change your name, so for other people to make it easy for them, what else about yourself are you changing or dismissing for other people to make it easier for them? Did you ever Westernize your name?
No, in fact, I get pissed when people are like, can I call you Vas? And I'm like, no, you can't call me Vas. You just met me. Like, can you try to say my name a few times? No. In fact, up until 18, people called me Vasavi. And senior year of high school is when I decided I'm Vasavi. So I came into senior year of high school saying it's Vasavi now.
You know what? In Gujarati, Vas means like a bad smell. So...
Oh, yes, I know that. I was married to a Gujarati, so I do know that.
Okay.
Yeah, I was married to a Gujarati. Yeah.
Don't want to call you that.
Yeah. Vas means a bad smell. I smell good most of the time. So yeah.
I would hope so.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, we can't smell each other in a podcast, but I'm sure we all smell great. What does it mean to play hide and seek out loud?
In this chapter of my book, it was really about infusing more playfulness into who you are. I've done comedy before. I'm an actor. I'm a voiceover artist. I would not be able to do any of those things if my childlike spirit was out the window. And so I have channeled different parts of myself to be able to do the fun stuff that I do. I just got booked for a commercial in Dallas. I'm doing that. That's going to be hella fun. But when I write in this chapter, it's really about taking my reader through a journey with themselves. Instead of being so hard on yourself, be curious and be playful about who you are. It's just how you speak to yourself. Every single chapter in my book, including this one, Play Hide and Seek Out Loud, is teaching you how to speak to yourself. It's not just what you say, but it's how you say it. So, okay, let me give you an example. It's kind of like when we used to play hide and seek as kids. I used to play with my sister in the neighborhood, and she'd say, come out, wherever you are. And I say that in my book. That's how you have to speak to the different parts of yourself that have felt silenced and suppressed. You can't just expect this part of you that you've rejected or that people in your life have rejected. It's not always you. Maybe it's been rejected from other people. You can't just expect these parts of you to come out and be like, okay, I'm here. I'm ready to be shown to the world. You have to speak to yourself in a way that allows that part of you to feel safe enough to come out. Point blank, you have to be a safe space for yourself. We're constantly searching for safe spaces, and I'm very grateful. I've created a safe space inside my Say It Out Loud group community. But outside of that, you need to be your own safe space. You need to be your own safe space. And so playing hide and seek out loud is really more of the fun chapter where, I mean, all the chapters are fun, if I say so myself. Playing with your voice is fun, but this is really the opportunity for you to bring out that playful, creative, childlike side of you.
When you described that, and I saw it in the book, immediately what came to my mind was Austin Powers, and talking to myself in Austin Powers voices, and that sounded playful.
Yes. Listen, have fun with it. That's a childlike part of you. That's a very silly part of you. We should not silence those parts of us because, listen, you're very comical. I felt instantly at ease when I first met you. That's a part of you that, that probably is where the Austin Powers part of you lives too, right? Like you need that when you're talking to guests, a new person that's just come on. My point in sharing this, what I want your listeners to say is that you are a multifaceted, multidimensional human being. You are not just one way all the time. There are other parts of you. And some of those parts of you you're sitting on a gold mine. Here's
the interesting thing. School and society will tell us plenty to silence those parts of our lives, right? To silence those, sit down, pay attention, stop talking, don't be a distraction, and silence that. And it really is a tragedy if we buy into that and then we do it to ourselves, right?
Yeah. Yes. And so go ahead.
No, I was just thinking, like, what would you say to somebody who's listening to this and they're like, yeah, but life's not like that. Like, you gotta muscle up. It's not fun and games. Especially because a lot of our listeners are in high acuity situations, right? High stakes situations where somebody's life is on the line, or they're responsible for millions of dollars, or, whatever it may be. And for them, their whole world is very serious.
That's a really serious way to live. I mean, I would say, I would ask if that's working for you. Listen, I'm not here to change anyone's mind about anything. I'm really not. I'm just here to ask you if you're happy. Are you doing well? Dinesh, you made me laugh when you wrote that. Look at me.
It's still in my head. I can't get it out. Sorry.
For listeners, he just made an Austin Powers comment.
Oh my God, you're so funny. Yeah. What I would ask is, is it working for you? Yeah. Here's the thing. It's like, I want people to listening to our conversation. I'm not trying to change you. I'm not trying to fix you. I'm just trying to offer a different way of looking at things. And whether you're in a high acuity situations, dealing with somebody's life or dealing with millions of dollars, you get to decide if the way that you're living and the way that you're speaking to yourself is working for you. It may have gotten you up until a point, but all I care about is, are you happy?
Yeah.
Are you happy? Yeah. Are you happy?
A long time ago, I was at another law firm, and there was a very senior partner. And I think there was some very tense discussions, and the partner stood up and said, hey, we're all just got to take ourselves a little less seriously. And then there's this concept out there of being sincere instead of serious. And I think too often we can take ourselves too seriously, and dialing down the knob on the level of seriousness and separating that from sincerity. We can be sincere in our work. We can be sincere in everything we do, but dialing down the seriousness will, in my opinion, make space for the magic in the play, right? And we have to make space for the magic in the play. Otherwise, the seriousness is like a weed, right? It'll just grow and choke everything else out.
Well, that's why I loved coming on this podcast, because it's been fun since minute one. Since the time that I've got on here, it's been fun. I was a little tired when I got on here. I had back-to-back stuff, but I'm energized now because I think it's really both of you, the combination of both of you together and the jokes that we had. I mean, it just kind of elevated it. We're all still being very sincere, but we're not.
Yeah.
And we're talking about some pretty serious stuff here, but there's still a levity to it. That's the thing. When things are so serious, it can be hard to even see a solution or to even be grateful, right? And so that's why I think adding a little bit of humor, adding a little bit of levity will take you much farther than just being serious. And I love that, what you just said. You can be sincere. What did you say? You said you don't have to be so serious. But you could still be sincere.
Right. Trades seriousness for sincerity.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
So we're getting to the top of the hour here, and I want to touch on one, serious topic. And this actually was requested by a listener, and it deals with the topic of divorce in our culture. And specifically, the listener asked us to bring on a guest who can talk about, life after divorce, moving on from divorce, and we'd love for you to share as much as you're comfortable with. Your journey and what it's like to move on past divorce, and how you can, use the principles in your book, right? Playing hide and seek out loud, saying it out loud, or even, your favorite line to me so far is, do you think it's weird to talk to yourself out loud? All of that, those are, in my opinion, various ingredients and tools that come together in someone who is finding themselves after divorce. Could you share more on that?
Yeah, so I got divorced 10 years ago, and I don't regret it. There's no part of me that regrets it. My ex-husband and I are still on good terms. If I were to call him up today, it would be fine. He's remarried with the kids, so obviously we don't talk. But if I needed to call him for whatever reason, let's just say whatever, he still owes some money to my parents, so we're still very much connected. But if I needed to talk to him, it would be fine. And I think the biggest mistake that I made was jumping into a relationship very quickly after. I knew I wanted to get divorced and be on my own, and I had never experienced that. And it wasn't working for whatever. The marriage did not work. Okay. The marriage did not work. I knew I wanted to be alone, and I got distracted. I met somebody much younger than me, and I ended up getting into a relationship. And eventually moved this person in to, it's very unlike me. My parents they had no idea what was going on. In fact, I remember my mother said, I don't even have a daughter. This doesn't even feel like my daughter, And I just got immersed in relationship. That was a 4-year relationship post-divorce that I got into. Then I got engaged again, and I got into another relationship, which didn't work out. What I now know is, number one, what I wish, if I could do it all over again, I would have waited till now to get married. I know myself. However, I wouldn't have known myself so much now had I not gone through that. So it's like, that's why I'm like, it's all gravy. It all worked out.
Sure.
But definitely you are not a failure. Like the marriage did not fail. It just ended. And I think we need to normalize endings. Like it's okay to not be together forever. It's really okay. And if it's not working, it's not working. And that, I think I did not know how to handle the ending. I felt like a failure. And it didn't help that my parents basically cut me off, emotionally, and they didn't want to have anything to do with me after I got divorced. So I think the thing is, you have to make this decision for you. I didn't consult with anyone when I got divorced. Nobody knew. I made up that mind. I made up my mind internally. Ashish and I, who was my husband, we talked about it, and he knew that it was coming. I knew it was coming. It was just a matter of time. But I think definitely don't feel bad about leaving. Don't feel bad about things ending, and use this opportunity to be with yourself and be in a relationship with yourself. I had to eventually learn how to do that. And I had to learn how to do it alone, without a man, without a relationship holding me. I had to become both the stability and the security for myself, and the nurturer and the softness for myself. I had to be both a man, and I had to be mom and dad to myself. I have to be husband and wife to myself. And I have to learn that. And I had to learn that until now. I'm ready for somebody to enter into my life. Now I am. I've never said that before. I've never been so like, oh yeah, I'm ready. If I were to meet someone now, because now I know who I am. Now I know what my non-negotiables are. I'm not desperate. If it doesn't work out, cool. It's fine. It doesn't mean anything about me. I don't take it so personally. So for anyone listening who's going through a divorce, you've just gone through a divorce, you can use this time and you can use this opportunity as a time to really reconnect with yourself and not jump into something immediately. Don't jump into something immediately. Use this time to really get to know yourself. Don't make the mistakes that I made. So I'll tell you everything not to do. Don't jump into a relationship right away. Don't move somebody in. Don't go out and just start like acting wild. You know what I mean? Like use this. I mean, listen, we're all going to do what we got to do to cope. Everything that I did post-divorce, getting into a relationship with a younger man, having him move in, using a shit ton of drugs with him, you know, and then I ended up going to rehab. I don't regret any of it. Do I wish none of it happened? No, I don't actually wish that, because I really like how I turned out. I really enjoy myself. I don't think you guys understand. Like the reason why I'm so cool being single is because I really enjoy being with myself. I don't think many people can say that, single or married.
Yeah,
No.
I love it. I love it. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to kind of reflect back and say that none of the things that you're saying is really said out of judgment or like what. It's just kind of a neutral statement. You know, Dinesh and I did a podcast weeks and weeks and weeks ago on the stallion story, which I know you're probably familiar with, right? And the whole idea of nothing being really good or bad, it just is, and it's really depending on what you make of it. For the listeners who don't know the story, and I just love how you said that. It's just what it is, and you got to own your power and have fun with it.
Yeah. I in fact, like, I don't feel at this point, I'm not like, listen, I was definitely in a man bashing phase, and I'm out of that man bashing phase. I think everyone goes through a phase where they just like hate the opposite sex, and they're just like, I was in that for a while, and I kind of had to be that way in order for me to stay away from relationships. I needed to set a boundary with myself, you know? I'm a little bit of a love addict. What can I say? I mean, I love love. I love love. But how the hell can I love somebody else if I don't fully give that to myself? You know, fully love myself, and constantly depending on somebody else to make me feel good about myself. So I'm in a place now where I work my ass off to feel really good about who I am. So I think I have a lot to bring to the table, and I'm not expecting anyone else to do that for me.
So I wanted to remark on that before we wrap up. I just think that when you say those things, you just say them. It's almost like what I'm hearing you say is the more you grasped for it, the further away it got, right? It just eluded you just a little bit more. But now that you're okay and at peace and grateful for what is, you're able to just be open to anything, anytime, anywhere for it to work out. I'm still
getting, I want to be honest with you guys. It's still, sometimes I'll be observing myself throughout the day, and I'll be like, man, 2 years ago, where were you at? Oh my God, 3 years ago mentally. I want your audience to hear this. I'm still new to me. This version of Vasavi is still new to me. I'm still getting to know her. And I don't want to ever just lose that. I don't want to lose that, because I really like who I'm discovering now. And every day is a learning of who I am. So whether you're single, you're married, you're divorced, you have an opportunity to give that to yourself. Yeah.
So good. You know, one of the people that we all take inspiration from is Vishen Lakhiani, the founder of Mind Valley.
Yeah.
And he very publicly ended his relationship with, I believe it was his wife at the time.
Christina,
Christina. And one of the things that they did was, rather than mourn the loss, was celebrate the time they had together. And it really resonated to me when you said, like, we have to normalize things ending. Nothing goes on in perpetuity, not even life itself, right? And why be afraid of an end when it's a natural part of life, and it takes away from us celebrating what was, right?
That's right. There's so much peace in that. I find peace in that. Yeah.
A lot of peace.
You don't get mad at a movie for ending, or a book. Like, you don't get to the last page. You're like, darn it, now I read the last page of Say It Out Loud. What do I do now? Like, that's not what happens, right?
Funny.
Like,
Yeah, that's good.
So
Good stuff. We have a little bit of a tradition at the end of each episode, and it's a 3-part tradition. I'll do a couple parts. Seema will do a couple parts. And the first part is you're an expert. You're obviously done a lot. You're an inspiration. In fact, I've followed you on Instagram. Her IG is My Name is Vasavi because I want to stay connected with you.
Thanks, Dinesh.
Teach us something. Take 30 seconds, 90 seconds. Teach us something that would be of value to Seema or me or to an audience that only you can teach.
Only I can teach. Okay, let me just tell you this. If you take 2 shots of espresso and then you mix in unsweetened almond milk and just a touch of oat milk creamer, milk creamer with a little bit of flavor, you put some ice in it, you mix it up, you have what I like to call the basic bitch latte. It is the best. Well, listen, and I have no problem saying I'm a basic bitch sometimes, and I love a nice oat milk latte. I know that seems really simple, but it really gets my day going. I have the best iced coffee every single morning, and I found the perfect concoction.
Do you put any condensed milk in there?
Oh my God, that's such a good question. No, I've never done that before.
Let's try it. We're all 3 going to try it.
Okay.
Vasavi, on the Happy and Human show, we ask all of our guests a question that the last guest before you has left for you. Okay, so this person did not know who you were going to be or what, like anything, nothing. And so this question is from Dr. Zabina Basin. She's CEO of In Kids Co. So she asks for you, at this time in your life, if you could change your career or deviate something to create social impact for the world, for the next generation, what would you do?
Man, what I would love to do is to take my Say It Out Loud group and just like, I've always thought about, because Say It Out Loud book is a 12-step, it's basically a 12-step program, kind of like the 12-step programs out there. I wish, what I would do is to turn my Say It Out Loud community that I have, and our next program is in January, like turn it into like a 12-step model where people from every city, like all over in different cities, could just start their own Say It Out Loud groups.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
Empowering people to make those changes with something that they know is going to work, a system, a framework that they don't have to get lost.
Yes.
I love it. I love it. So by that token, now we do not know who the next podcast guest is going to be on the Happy and Human show. What is your question for them?
My question is, where in your life are you not saying it out loud? And if you didn't care what anyone thought, what would you be saying?
Ooh.
What would you say?
Listeners, I want you guys to just like DM Vasavi or Dinesh or myself, like just let us know the answer to this question for yourselves. That is so good.
Yeah.
So,
I think you guys know what I would say. It's in the chat, and it's, look at me, I'm a sexy bitch, baby. Yeah.
You got to do it with more British. Oh, come on, Dee. I know you can do that.
Well, I'll have to work on that.
Work on it. Okay. In front of the mirror, mind you.
In front of the mirror. And
in front of the mirror.
And you got to be dressed in like 70s gear. 70s
you know
outfit.
What? I'm just gonna record the video and send it to you guys.
Please do. Put us in a group. Yeah, I would love to. I would love to laugh at you.
Laugh with you. Laugh with you.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Laugh with you. Yeah.
All right. So our final piece of wrap up is, we started this podcast to elevate South Asian voices and to highlight the people that are breaking the mold and all the wonderful things they're doing. And we want the Happy and Human podcast to make an impact. And in that spirit, we ask each guest to identify a cause, or organization, a charity that Seema and I, on behalf of the guest and behalf of the Happy and Human Podcast Nation, can make a contribution. It's a small contribution, but I think from the efforts that we all put together in creating this show, I think we can make a bigger impact and have more people outside of the Happy and Human Podcast community benefit. What would be your charity? Where would you like us to make a contribution?
So there's NAMI, which is the National Alliance of Mental Illness. And within each chapter, they have what's called Samaj. And so it's part of NAMI, but it provides South Asians affected by serious mental illness. So India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. So it's just an offshoot. So the organization is called Samaj, and that's, so SAMHAJ. And it's for, helping South Asians with mental illness, mental health challenges.
Thank you for sharing that. And one of the benefits is that we all get to learn about different organizations, because that's one that I'd never heard. Yeah. So, all right, tell us where our audience can find you. Tell us about your book, where they can pick that up, what you've got coming up, and how can people connect with you, and what are you excited about coming up for you?
Yes, so you can go to my website, vasavikumar.com. You can find my book there. My book is available everywhere that you buy books. You can connect with me on Instagram. My handle, as you said before, is my name is Vasavi. Feel free to send a DM. Let me know that you love this episode. What I'm really excited about is I'm in a very big commercial for Indeed.com next week. I just got booked, so it pays very well. I'm the lead. I'm very excited. I just can't even believe it. I auditioned. I got a call back. It went through a few iterations, and I finally booked. And I'm just really, really excited. I'm very excited that I have other creative outlets that I get to explore. Like, what I want people hearing is, yes, I'm on here doing these interviews and I wrote a book, but I have a whole nother creative side that I talk about, but it's like, that's my, I don't want to say secret life, but that's my other life, doing voiceover, doing acting, emceeing. But then when you hear me on here, I'm talking about the book and my personal life, but I have other stuff too. So I'm very excited because put me in front of a camera. I'm so happy. Yeah.
So good. So good.
That's exciting. And I can't wait to see the commercial.
Thank you. I'll make sure that I show that to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So good.
Yeah.
Well, Happy and Human listeners, thank you for listening in. DM us on Instagram. Let us know that you enjoyed this episode, and be sure to follow along on the Happy and Human podcast page